Hi everybody, my name is Jimmy Carroll. I'm the Vice President of Operations at Tech B2B Marketing, and welcome to this episode of the Manufacturing Matters podcast. I'm joined today by Geoff Dawson, who is the Director of Sales at FANUC, and it is my pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Jimmy. We appreciate being here.
Awesome. Well, the pleasure is mine. I got the chance earlier to sit in on watch, I should say, not sit in on, a great executive roundtable discussion at the A3 Business Forum where we are this week. And Mike Chico was on it, who's the head of FANUC, CEO or president.
Yes.
And they talked a lot about, 2025 was sort of a year of uncertainty. 2026 is a year of optimism. There's a lot of reasons to be excited for 2026, and that's where I'm going to start things for you. Is like, what are you most excited about, and why should people be optimistic?
I'm really excited about the accessibility of technology and the new technologies that are coming out and the purpose of those technologies. Things like AI and cobots and digital twins. They're all really technologies to make things more accessible and to make the job easier. Mm-hmm. So to make the deployment of robots much more agile, much faster, much more seamless, so to speak, and really making them, you don't have to be, a rocket scientist to engage with a robot. We're bringing the technology forward that allows for ease of use and for ease of operation for these companies to implement them quickly and successfully.
Yeah, and ease of use is a good topic, and it seems to come up a lot, and for all the obvious reasons, right? But do you think that being able to, and the reason I'm asking this question is, like, we talk a lot in this industry about attracting young talent to come in.
Right.
There's a labor shortage, and manufacturing isn't the sexiest job maybe for young people, but if robots are easier to use, if machine vision technologies are easier to use for the non-integrator engineer type, that can attract people to come into this industry as well, right? Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. We call them the dull, dangerous, and dirty jobs, right? And we don't have a lot of talent that wants to go into that kind of manufacturing. But we've all grown up with some kind of device. We all understand how ease of use has applied in our lives, and putting even current operators, allowing them to move to the next level, and now they're operating equipment. They're operating a cell rather than being the cell, rather than being the devices that are doing the loading and unloading. They're operating the equipment and the technology that is now advancing both their company's ability to be successful and their lives as well.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like you go back to iPhones now have no buttons at all, but the first iPhone had one single button, and I remember that transition thinking, how are we going to go from a full keyboard to one button? How's that going to work? Well, in some ways, like, that's happening in automation, like with intuitive HMIs for both the technical and non-technical, and that's something that's really interesting to follow, and it's kind of a good segue into another question I wanted to ask you, which is about this gap in labor and the need for training of the younger generations, right? There have been some really significant investments in manufacturing and production facilities in the U.S.
Absolutely.
So obviously this is going to lead to an even larger labor shortage gap, and that's going to mean more automation. So how do you think this, in terms of U.S. reshoring efforts, like, robots are sort of going to lead the charge there? Would you say that?
Absolutely. It was always, back in the day, we talked about how many heads are we going to remove from an operation. Now it's how do we maintain the heads we have, and how do we subsidize them, and robots, cobots especially, are ways to do that. So we're seeing a lot of that, especially, all the different kinds of, it's not, things that we didn't think to automate before, high mix and low volume, now are becoming automatable with some of the tools that we have out there. But I think robots are a very important part of that, bridging that gap, because we have a skills gap, and it's an ever increasing skills gap.
Yeah, and FANUC obviously does its IR vision technology, but there's a lot of different technologies that come together to make that possible, right? Absolutely. And you look at the different colored lanyards here, and it's the motion control and AI and machine vision and robotics, and all these technologies work together to make these operations happen. A topic that's come up a lot is lights out. lights out manufacturing, not just manufacturing, but also in the warehouse. And I know FANUC has a zero downtime solution, but beyond that, like how can we get to lights out? Can we get to full lights out? Do you think will there still need to be some minimum level of human intervention? And what are your thoughts in general there?
I think absolutely there's human intervention, but I think we can get to a level where it requires less of that. I mean, I think going down simply to I work a lot around the machine tool industry and around machine tool load unload applications, and there's a lot of standard pre-engineered solutions out there now that have drawers and tables that the parts are populated on, and they get loaded up, and then the robot loads and unloads until basically you end up with finished parts. And a lot of times now these are going into small, medium size. I mean, even down to the job shop level. We have over 30,000 what we consider job shops in the U.S. So there's a lot of opportunity there, and some of these companies are doing some sort of lights out where they, at the end of the day, they can load these drawer systems or these systems up and come in the next morning with finished parts. So that's a variation of lights out, right? And FANUC itself as a company has been doing lights out production in Japan for a long time. We have over 5,000 robots in Japan. We build robots with robots. We have machining factories that have long we can put the raw materials in, and we have a long production cycle of several days before we have to theoretically replenish those systems. So I think we can get there. I don't know that every operation everywhere can go lights out, but I think there are certain low-hanging fruit things that can be put in, can be run as lights out.
Yeah, it's probably application or industry to industry. Like maybe there are some that are dealing with, I don't know, pharmaceuticals. Maybe that's more attainable than others. But there's always going to be some level.
Like food, right?
Yeah.
Food. I think just because of the, even if you could come up with an always running system, at some point you have to sanitize. I mean, it's just that for primary food handling. So there's sanitization that has to happen. So it's not really they can run, but I think we're at a point where some of these a lot of these systems, assembly systems and such, run several hours. So which is somewhat lights out, right?
Yeah.
They can run without intervention.
Yeah. Alex Shikani called it dark factory. Well, it's like the mostly dark factory.
Yeah, mostly dark factory.
But yeah, I mean it's very interesting, and obviously the closer we get, then the more efficient businesses can run and everything else.
Absolutely.
You mentioned food, and that's a good one I want to ask about, because there are specific needs in food with washdown environments and things like that. But I know that when it comes to robotics, that like automotive a lot of times takes the main stage in terms of the applications. But what are some other industries where you've seen robotic adoption growing, and where maybe even your company's had to adapt its product development to meet these new needs?
Hey everybody, I just want to take a quick second and thank our sponsor. Manufacturing Matters is sponsored by Tech B2B Marketing. They're a full-service public relations and marketing agency that focuses on technology companies, especially in the energy and automation markets. They provide full-service media relations, investor relations, employee relations, full end-to-end content development, videos, services, animation, full IT stack development from website integrating with ERP systems, CRM, marketing automation systems, and they bring a whole lot of knowledge and experience about technical markets, since they've been servicing those markets for over 30 years. So if you have any questions, you want to learn more, go to techb2b.com, and now let's get back to the show.
I'd say definitely food, because there's requirements, sanitation requirements and such that have required us to take a look at how our robots are constructed and ensure that we have the ability to wash those robots down, right? So definitely, and the ability to handle the chemicals. There's some pretty corrosive chemicals that are used in that cleaning process. So definitely there. Pharmaceutical assembly type stuff. We've FANUC brought out we weren't players in the SCARA area. We brought SCARAs out. Now we have a full line of SCARAs, and they're very, very popular in that assembly, whether it's electronics assembly or whether it's used in pharmaceutical, whether it's used in medical assembly. Cobots, right? There was a big demand. We we got into cobots by taking industrial robots and making them cobots, but we found a need to have a purpose-built cobot to really fit what the market was looking for. So that's where our CRX line came out.
Sure.
So I think, painting, that's another area. FANUC's been building paint robots in the U.S. since 1982. So we manufacture the paint robots in Rochester Hills, Michigan, that are shipped all over the world to our subsidiaries. And that goes back to a joint venture we had with General Motors, where they kind of brought the paint technology, we brought the electric servo motor technology, and married them together. And now we're paint's a huge, very big business for us. So.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, absolutely. It's in terms of you get to see a lot of different industries. I'm thinking, right?
Yes.
So like, kind of hard to use a crystal ball here, but what are some industries where you could see some significant growth in the next couple of years?
I think anything to do with data centers.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Anything to do with data centers, and when I say that, it's the
AI.
Yeah, the AI. So, but it's on the building the stuff that's going into data centers. So we're seeing a lot of need. You're hearing a lot of programs that are building the GPUs and building the GPUs, building the cases and assembling those. A lot of backup power for data centers. So we're seeing a big push because they require a lot of power, and they also require backup power. So you're seeing a lot of power generation growth from some big customers. So definitely one of the areas. I mean, space, things around, the things that take satellites into orbit, right? And we've seen a lot of push there with all the companies that have gotten into that space. Definitely pharmaceutical. Yeah. Pharmaceuticals, especially with all the new injectables and so on and so forth, that we've seen a lot of growth there too.
What about applications that could be considered so-called physical AI? And what is it? First of all, I guess, what does that term mean to you? It's something that has been discussed kind of at length lately. People have strong opinions on it, but what is it?
I think we've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
FANUC's been doing AI. We've incorporated AI for over 15 years. We use AI to tune servos. We used AI for a product we had called Learned Vibration Control, which was where we had a vibration sensor on the end of an arm, a robot arm, and we would go through the paths, and the whole purpose was to try to smooth out that motion by sensing the vibrations. And this was very important in automotive when they were getting the takt time down on like spot welding applications. Really intense, really fast, quick takt time applications. Safety, physical AIs and safety, right? A lot of the new safety systems, they're starting to see where they can incorporate AI and of course AI vision. The impact of all the startups that have got, especially I would say one of the biggest areas where we've seen AI the most in the last few years is the e-commerce and warehousing space.
Yeah.
With all of the different, and there's so many different, the companies are on, specific applications, right? You'll have somebody that's really focused on truck unload. You'll have somebody that's really focused on each picking. You'll have somebody that's really focused on sortation, palletizing, depalletizing.
Yeah, high-speed barcode reading, whatever.
And just having more compute power for that, I think that's, and really what we've seen too a lot is, FANUC's just really opened up, and we've got streaming now. We've got ROS2 drivers. We've got some Python support in our next generation controller. We got stuff, all kinds of tools now, because at the end of the day, it's the startups that have the thought on the different kinds of technology that they want those tools, because that's how they're going to come to reality. And I think Mike talked a little bit about that earlier too, about how these companies they want it opens up a lot of possibilities for them, but it also opens up safety concerns too. So it's a catch-22, right? So there's a, but I think having those tools available, having the ability for people to get access and use those tools that they're using to develop different applications within our markets.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. Is like one of the things I wanted to ask you about was I've seen a number of companies out there, whether they're startups or even grown beyond being a startup, that they don't necessarily manufacture products, they offer solutions, and oftentimes they're using FANUC robots. What are some examples in recent years of customers of yours that are using FANUC robots, but maybe integrating their own AI or vision or whatever to solve new challenges?
I know. For the most part, it's on the most prominently was in the warehousing and e-commerce space, right?
Yep.
You know, the figuring out the depalletizing, but we've also got our own box locator for doing that with AI now, and starting to see it on the machine tool side, where using AI chat with a robot in order to tell the robot, instead of having to fill out a form or fill out an operator, it's more of a conversational, almost like a chat GTP, telling the robot and the machine what the setup is and what the part they're going to run is.
Yeah, and that's a really good point too, is like these large language model tools, like I feel like even just a few years ago, people are going, yeah, here and there they can be used maybe to help with some coding, but now there are large companies that are integrating LLMs into their environments, and that's super fascinating to me.
For sure.
What else is out there? What are you most excited about in the next couple of years? Do you have any predictions, things you expect to see?
It's just the continued usage of our technology to help, fill this skills gap, I think is important. I think there's going to be more plug and play vision and grippers and continued development of applications. I think we've really seen, I'm excited, again, it's because I spend more time there, I'm excited about the opportunity within to bring automation and robotics to help the small company become very successful, where they can't find people. So that excites me a lot. I think just continued growth in the collaborative robots. I mean, I think we're just going to, we continue to see new applications, and I think it's not just, it's funny is, you think, collaborative robots at first, it was the do-it-yourself thing. Now it's about solutions, and I'm excited about all the solutions that are being developed, that people can buy a solution almost ready to go, in some cases ready to go, and also the adoption of cobots. The large companies are now figuring out, they're doing programs where they're realizing that a collaborative robot can be an assistant to their operators, to present parts to the operators, so they can allow the operators to really, concentrate on what they need to and get away from ergonomic issues, get away from, dirty issues and danger, just handle and really be supplemented by the robot, or be subsidized with the robot.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a really good answer. I think that, to me, it feels like the industry might have dips and jumps in terms of growth, but for the industry to really continue to grow, more and more small and medium-sized companies need to be able to adopt automation, and seeing what companies like FANUC are doing, and then companies that are leveraging FANUC's technology to implement their own software or whatever it might be as a total solution, and making these things more accessible, easy to use. There's a lot of opportunity there to see growth in automation, and to me, one of the most exciting things is, and I say this too often, and I know I shouldn't, but it's seeing all these different technologies converge to solve challenges for people, and like that's going to be more necessary than ever now with reshoring efforts. So
yeah, I'm really excited about our investments. When you talk reshoring, our FANUC's investments, we went from when I moved to Michigan 11 years ago, we had 400,000 square feet in Michigan. Now we have almost 2 million square feet. So since 2019, we've built a 450,000 and a 650,000 square foot building, and we can deliver robots, pretty quickly, which I think is needed at this time. So, and training people too. It's very important, the training aspect. We've got a big investment going on right now into our training academy.
yeah.
So that's really exciting, and also, on the customer side, there's a lot of pilots. I'm really excited for some of these. There's a lot of pilots out there. We have a lot of pilots, and the technology is being proven, and I'm excited for those pilots to turn into scale.
So,
I think really looking forward to seeing some of these really kick off.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the FANUC's leadership in the industry is something to follow. It has always been. I mean, I don't know how many millions of robots you've sold now, but I remember you hit some milestone a few years ago, and I thought to myself, wow, like I had no idea. Geoff, is there anything else we haven't talked about that you feel is important to mention today?
I don't think so. I think this has been, I've really enjoyed the conversation. I think everybody, our customers, our partners, that's, we're all gonna be winners going forward. I think there's so much opportunity. I think it's not to steal, but it's an exciting time. But I think every year is going to be more exciting. I think we just have excitement upon excitement coming up with this industry.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, it's absolutely. And for those that are looking at, everyone probably listening to this knows who FANUC is, but if you don't, go to FANUC.com, check them out, go on LinkedIn. Read their blog, see what they're up to. It's been something I've been following for a long time now, and look forward to the continued leadership in the industry. And same for A3. Go to automate.org if you're looking to make that leap into automation. FANUC and A3 would be two great places to start. And with that, Geoff, I would just thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. If anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to us at manufacturing-matters.com. And once again, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jimmy. I appreciate it.
Awesome.